My name is Danielle Hart, and I was 33 years old when I received the Purple Heart. It was September 2018, at Naval Station Norfolk, the late summer heat rising off the pavement in shimmering waves. The ceremony was small, held on the courtyard near the memorial wall, where the flag snapped sharply in the wind. I should have felt proud, steady, grateful to be standing at all. But pride was not what found me that day. When they called my name, I stepped forward, boots polished, uniform pressed neat, my breathing slow the way the Corps had taught me. Captain Monroe stood waiting, medal in hand. And just behind me, in the third row, I heard my older brother Ryan say under his breath, loud enough for everyone around him to hear, "Guess they're just handing those out now if you cry hard enough." A few soft laughs followed, not from strangers, from my family. My stomach tightened, but I kept my chin high. Captain Monroe pinned the medal against my chest, the metal cool through the fabric, heavier than I expected. His expression was calm, respectful, but when his eyes flicked briefly toward my family, something like understanding moved across his face. My mother stared straight ahead, hands folded, her smile practiced and thin, like she was attending a graduation, not a wound. My father kept his arms crossed, jaw tight with something that wasn't pride, and Ryan leaned again to his girlfriend Kara, her phone angled low, recording. The red light blinked like a heartbeat I couldn't calm. For years, I believed that surviving meant honor, that scars meant courage, that coming home meant I had done something right. But the way they looked at me didn't feel like pride. It felt like a question. Why her? Why not us? When the announcer spoke my name again, the courtyard fell quiet. Captain Monroe's hand rested lightly on my shoulder, not congratulating, but steadying, like he knew exactly what was happening. The Purple Heart isn't just a medal, it's a reminder, and some wounds never break skin. That day felt like proof of something darker waiting to surface. 3 days after the ceremony, I drove west across the bridges back to Portsmouth, Virginia, the shipyard town that raised me. Our old place still stood on Liberty Street, a name that never quite fit. Paint peeled from the porch rails. The air smelled like oil, brine, and rust. An old wooden plaque by the steps still claimed, "A family built on honor." The words looked carved in denial. Passing the edge of the shipyard, I slowed. The remembered clang of tools, my father's voice barking orders, the salt stinging my eyes, ghosts that didn't know they were ghosts. He once taught me how to patch a hull, how to make broken things float. The last time I'd seen pride in his eyes was the day before I told him I was enlisting. Then came the slam of his fist on the table, loud as thunder. "No daughter of mine wears navy blues." After that, we spoke through walls. My mother never shouted, she only whispered her gospel. "Family first, Danielle. Don't bring shame to us." Back then, it sounded like love. Standing there now, I understood. Sometimes family first really means truth last. Upstairs, dust lay thick as regret. While sorting my mother's dresser, I found a yellowed envelope stamped faintly with the seal of the Office of Naval Intelligence. Inside, a page so faded I had to hold it to the window light. Ongoing observation. Civilian access to restricted medical data via heart contact. Heart contact. The words crawled beneath my skin. No one here worked with the Navy, except me. So who were they watching? My phone buzzed. A text from Captain Monroe. "Lieutenant Hart, we need to talk, privately, not a request, not a warning." That night, harbor lights cut thin lines through my father's office blinds. The smell of metal and sawdust lingered. His desk sat like a shrine to who he used to be. Plaques, trophies, a coffee mug turned upside down to keep the dust out. The bottom drawer jammed, then gave. Inside lay a single bank slip. Payment received. Atlantic Maritime Research Group, $7,500. Signed, R. Hart. My mouth filled with the taste of iron. He'd always said honor has no price. Maybe he'd just found the right buyer. I snapped a photo and sent it to Ethan Cole, my old teammate. Half an hour later, he replied, "Danielle, that outfit's under investigation. They were tied to the convoy leak out of Aden." My hand went numb. Ethan sent a second message, a document this time, a list of contractors under investigation. Line 7 stopped my breath. Atlantic Maritime Research Group, suspected of leaking medical convoy routes to foreign buyers. The phone slipped from my hand and struck the hardwood floor with a crack that felt like a gunshot. They hadn't just taken money, they had sold the route that nearly killed me. Outside, waves slapped quietly against the pier pilings. On my father's desk sat an old photo, my Navy graduation. My father's hand resting firm on my shoulder, smiling like he had carved me from his own backbone. I touched the glass, and for a moment, our reflections merged. How do you love someone enough to raise them, and still sell you out? 3 days after I left their house, Kara sent a message. "Family dinner tonight. Ryan insists. Don't make it tense." I didn't want to go, but I needed to look them in the eyes, the people who treated my survival like an inconvenience. The Harbor Light Grill sat by the water, its yellow lamps glowing across the deck. My family was already seated, smiling for the room, the picture of wholesome unity. To them, this was a reunion. To me, it was a trial. My father leaned back, voice warm to strangers, sharp beneath the surface. "So, Lieutenant Hart, planning to be some kind of hero now?" I answered evenly. "Just did my job." Ryan chuckled, swirling his drink. "Must pay better than shipyard work. Maybe you'll let us borrow that medal sometime." Laughter. The kind that doesn't rise from joy, but from the pleasure of seeing someone small. Halfway through dinner, my phone buzzed. A message from Captain Monroe. "We found something. Meet me. Don't alert them." My pulse froze. After dinner, I drove straight to the base. Captain Monroe waited in his quiet office, lamplight pooling across paperwork. He slid a folder toward me. Bank transfers. Payments to Ryan. Directly from Atlantic Maritime Research Group. Dated during the same months my convoy route was leaked in Yemen. My voice cracked. He wouldn't. Captain Monroe's reply was almost gentle. "Prepare yourself, Lieutenant." The final signature line read, "Report submitted by R. Hart. Verification, F. Hart. My brother. My father." I drove home across the harbor bridge, the city lights below breaking into pieces, like something I thought I could trust. The next day, I returned to Harbor Light. Another meal. Another performance. Kara already had her small camera set up on the end of the table, angled just so the family looked warm and united. Ryan arrived late, pale, jaw tight, a sheen of sweat along his brow. My father spoke first. "All this fuss over some paperwork," Frank said. "You're overthinking it." "Maybe," I replied, "but the Navy doesn't overthink when people die." Kara's eyes narrowed, her tone sharp as a blade. "You think you're the only one who suffered? Your dad almost lost the house while you were off playing hero." The restaurant lights caught my glass of wine, dark and purple like my medal. A tiny fruit fly struggled in the surface tension, wings flickering wildly before going still. For a moment, I saw myself in it, trapped, drowning in a bloodline I didn't choose. My phone buzzed under the table. Ethan again. "Maritime Research is a shell company, front for foreign intelligence, the same buyer who purchased your convoy route." My hand trembled. I looked directly at Ryan. "Ever heard of Atlantic Maritime Research Group?" Ryan let out a thin, shaky laugh. "Consultants, taxes. Dad handled most of it." Frank cut him off, eyes sharp. "Drop it, Danielle. You don't bring work into family." I held his gaze. "You already did." The silence that followed had weight, the kind that crushes ribs. Driving home, my phone rang. Unknown number. A man's voice, calm, measured. "Stop digging, Lieutenant Hart. Some things are not meant to be found." The line went dead. In the rearview mirror, a black truck followed me for 5 blocks, then disappeared. When I returned home, Captain Monroe's message waited. Report everything. But prepare yourself. This won't end clean. I typed back. I'm ready. For the first time, the purple heart on my dresser didn't feel like a wound. It felt like armor. That night, I drove to the old Portsmouth shipyard. The fog rolled low, turning everything into a faded memory. Inside my father's workshop, sawdust coated every surface, except one drawer. Fresh fingerprints. I pulled it open. A steel toolbox. Inside, an external drive marked AMRG reports. I connected it to my laptop. Emails filled the screen. From R. Hart. Subject, delivery route confirmation. And below, keep it quiet from Danielle. My chest tightened, slow and crushing. I opened the attached file. Yemen convoy, final personnel list. I saw the first names: Jackson, Lee, Martinez, the men who didn't come home. The last line on the document read, casualty confirmed, 17. Survivors, 1. Survivor, Lieutenant Danielle Hart, injured. And under that, in a signature I had known my entire life, verified, F. Hart. My father had confirmed the deaths of the men who served beside me. He had signed off on the loss of the people I bled with, the people I mourned. My knees buckled. I sank to the cold shop floor, the laptop's blue glow washing over my face, catching along the scar on my shoulder until it looked fresh again. Some wounds never close. They just change color when the truth hits them. I sent every file to Captain Monroe. He called within minutes. His voice was low, steady, a man choosing his words with care. Lieutenant Hart, this is a federal case now. We'll take it from here, but you need to stay quiet. My response was immediate. Sir, quiet is how people died. Before dawn, another message came, anonymous. Do not involve federal agencies. You don't know who's watching. I stepped to the window. A black pickup sat 2 blocks down, engine idling, driver smoking, face hidden in shadow. He wasn't threatening me. He was reminding me I was being watched. That night, I sat in the dark, the purple heart cold in my palm. In Yemen, the bullet went through my shoulder. Tonight, I felt the second one, and it carried my last name. By morning, the story was everywhere. Local family under federal scrutiny in Navy data leak. A picture of us, years old, smiling like the world had never cracked. The phone rang. My mother's voice trembled. Danielle, please, you're destroying us. No, Mom, I said quietly. You destroyed yourselves when you put a price on lives. We didn't know what Ryan was doing. Then why did you cash the checks? Her breath broke into sobs, and I still couldn't tell if she cried for me or for the death of her reputation. By noon, Kara's video had gone viral. My sister's PTSD is making her hallucinate. She's confused. Please pray for us. 200,000 views. Comments calling me unstable, a liar, a traitor. I brought the hard drive to Captain Monroe. He read it all silently. Then, your family is now under full investigation. I'm placing you on temporary leave. I stared at him. So I just sit here while they burn what's left of my name? Captain Monroe meant well when he said, your silence will speak louder when the truth does. But silence had never protected me. Silence is where rot grows. That night, Ryan came to my door. He looked like he hadn't slept in days, eyes red, shoulders trembling beneath the weight of something he could no longer carry. It wasn't betrayal, Danielle, he said. It was survival. We just passed information. It wasn't dangerous. Then why are men dead, Ryan? Why is my name in the files you sold? He didn't answer. Finally, he whispered, the money was for Dad. The yard was dying. Later, I learned Mom used that same money to pay off the mortgage and buy a new SUV. When I confronted her, she broke instantly. Tears, shaking hands, apologies leaking like a faucet she'd forgotten how to close. "We thought it was compensation," she cried. "For your injury." I stared at her. "Compensation doesn't come with a confidentiality clause, Mom." She collapsed into the kitchen chair, clutching my wrist like I was the last piece of land on a sinking ship. "I just wanted peace." I pulled my hand back. "You bought peace with blood." That night, I walked the harbor alone. Wind pushed salt into my mouth. Streetlights flickered across the dark water like faint distress flares. The storm wasn't offshore. It was in me. The purple heart at my collar reflected in the water, violet against black. And I realized something. If honor was an inheritance, then I was the only heart left who still carried it. The hearing room at Naval Station Norfolk was so quiet I could hear the lights hum. The flag hung motionless above the officer's panel. I sat in full dress whites, the metal resting like a weight that knew my story now. Across from me sat Frank, Helen, Ryan, and Kara. Their eyes lowered. The Navy prosecutor read the charges. Classified medical convoy data was leaked through civilian contacts. Evidence traces directly to the Hart family. My father slammed the table. "You have no proof. We are patriots." Captain Monroe didn't raise his voice. He simply nodded. Security footage appeared on the screen. Frank taking a cash bag from a man wearing an Atlantic Maritime Research Group jacket. Then the audio file played. "Keep it quiet from Danielle. The Navy doesn't need to know." My mother sobbed. Ryan went still. Kara covered her face. Their silence was the sentence. Captain Monroe turned to me. "Lieutenant Hart, any final statement?" I stood. "I didn't survive by luck. I survived them." The room held its breath. "Courage isn't something they pin to your chest, Captain," I said softly. "It's what you do when your own blood tells you to be silent, and you speak anyway." The room didn't applaud. Real truth never asks for applause. As the officers escorted Frank and Ryan from the chamber, I stood, removed my white gloves, and closed my hand around the Purple Heart. I had fought 2 wars, one overseas, the other inside my own home. Both had left scars. Neither would ever fade. 3 months later, my uniform hung untouched in the closet of my small apartment in Portsmouth. I was on what the Navy called honorable recovery leave, a phrase that sounded dignified but felt like exile. The rooms were too quiet, the kind of quiet that swallows thoughts instead of easing them. Ship horns groaned from across the harbor, gulls called over the water, every sound echoed, sharp and distant. The news played in the background. Frank and Ryan Hart sentenced to 2 years federal probation. Kara Hart banned from social media involvement pending review. Helen Hart under ongoing federal investigation. I watched only long enough to understand the outcome. Then I turned the TV off. Justice doesn't always return in triumph. Sometimes it arrives like an aftershock, soft, heavy, and late. That afternoon, Ethan stopped by. The brace on his knee, his souvenir, as he called it, clinked softly when he sat. "You can't heal where you were hurt," he said. "Maybe healing isn't the point," I replied. "Maybe remembering is." He nodded. "Then make your scars mean something." 2 days later, I received an email from a name I didn't recognize. But the knock on my door that weekend told me everything. Hannah stood there. 16. Nervous. Eyes the same gray-blue mine once were, before war, before betrayal. She held a laptop to her chest. "I found Mom's archived files," she whispered. "You need to see this." Together we watched Kara fabricate sympathy online, editing documents, altering dates, shaping lies into narrative. Hannah's voice didn't shake when she said, "I already sent it to the FBI. I don't want to be part of the lies." For a long moment, I couldn't speak. There was something fierce in her, something pure, the kind of courage that grows after everything else has burned. I pulled her into my arms and whispered, "You didn't break this family, Hannah. You saved what was left of it. You rebuilt it." Sunlight poured through my office window, catching the Purple Heart where it rested on my desk. For the first time, it didn't feel like a scar. It felt like a beginning. 5 years later, Portsmouth breathed under a soft violet sky. The harbor shimmered in that quiet hour between day and night, where the water carries the scent of salt, metal, and forgiveness. A new sign stood at the end of the restored pier: Hart Institute for Ethical Service. It had taken everything, bone, memory, and will, to build it. Brick by brick, truth by truth. Captain Monroe had been the first to contribute. Ethan designed the veteran support curriculum and oversaw training sessions twice a week. Together, we built something intended to outlive the shame of our name. Inside my office, the air smelled faintly of old paper and sea wind. On the wall hung a framed photograph of the men who didn't make it home from Yemen. Beside it, the certificate marking the day the institute opened. On my desk, the Purple Heart rested beneath the warm dusk light, no longer a symbol of what was taken from me. It spoke now: "You can be wounded and still worthy." The door opened softly. Hannah stepped inside, wearing the crisp whites of a Navy uniform. Her posture was steady, her eyes were clear. She asked, almost a whisper, "Do you ever forgive them?" I looked toward the harbor, where the water shifted between lavender and gold. "Forgiveness isn't forgetting," I said. "It's knowing exactly what happened, and choosing peace anyway." She studied me for a moment, then smiled, small and sure. "Then you found peace?" I shook my head gently. "No, Hannah, I made it." When she left, I stepped out onto the balcony. Below, the old shipyard had been reborn. My father's ruined vessel, once abandoned, now restored and renamed the Resolute. It sailed relief supplies now. It served instead of destroyed. The gulls wheeled overhead. The tide breathed in and out. The harbor bells rang, soft, steady, like a heartbeat learning how to rest. The day I received my medal, they mocked me. I once wondered why. Now I understand. I carried the courage to tell the truth, even when it broke the family that raised me. Purple for pain, gold for peace, and somewhere between them, the life I rebuilt. Quiet, honest, unbroken. If you've listened to my story this far, I'd truly like to hear your thoughts. Tell me in the comments what you would have done or what you've learned from moments when truth and family collided in your own life. I'm not asking for sympathy, I'm asking for presence. If my journey teaches anything, it's this: do not betray yourself to keep peace that isn't real. Stand in your truth, even if your voice trembles. I'll be here reading every word.